Relevant, connected, great conversation. This is the Rick and Suzanne Show on CJAD 800.
In our continuing effort to help you stick to your resolution, to help you live a happy and healthy 2013, the entire year, not just a week or 2 or 6 months, but the entire year, we add in yet another chapter to our ongoing quest for information.
We are following the path. Seeing where it's going to take us, and we hope it will lead to a much healthier life, not only for Rick and myself, but for you as well. And very fascinating article in the constant evolution of what is good for you, what is not good for you. Eggs, don't eat them. Eggs, yes, eat them. Yeah. This kind of fat, that kind of fat, oils, this and that. Well, fascinating article in the February issue of Fashion Magazine.
Imagine, Fashion Magazine.
Fashion Magazine. And the editor of Fashion Magazine is also the author of the article. Joins us right now. We say good afternoon to Rani Sheen. And Rani, the title of the article is Fat Chance.
That's right.
And tell us a little bit. Now, I told everybody we are going to rock their food world a bit today with this. Mm-hmm. Because, I mean, fat, to us, fat in the body, when you eat it, equals fat on the body. Mm-hmm. So tell us a little bit about the evolution of why fat has always been deemed, at least in my lifetime, as an evil thing.
Well, first of all, thanks so much for having me on the show, Rick and Suzanne. And I'm actually the health editor at Fashion. And so in writing the story, that was the idea that really was top of mind, that fat in our minds is really, we feel like it's bad for us. We feel like it's going to make us fat. We feel like it's really bad for our health. And so I started reviewing some of the research, and what I was noticing was that there's a challenge to that idea, that certain fats are very good for us, our body needs them, and they actually don't necessarily contribute to weight gain in the way that we thought they did.
So tell us then, how all right.
Go ahead.
Explain then. There's different fats, right?
Absolutely.
But it's not just that. It's the way the body uses it and where it puts it. Is right.
Exactly.
Well, yeah.
So, yeah, fat is very complex. So it contains a bunch of different fatty acids. We've heard of polyunsaturated fats, monounsaturated, saturated. They all behave slightly differently in the body. And I think what this new research is really saying is that fat that occurs naturally in whole foods. So I'm not talking about oils added to processed foods. I'm talking about the fat that occurs naturally in, say, whole milk. That fat can be processed by the body, and it's not going to just keep you putting on weight. Your body can use that fat. It needs it for energy, for hair health, skin health, inflammation, for weight issues. It's actually it's essential for the body, so a certain kind of fat is taken in by the body and sent directly to the liver and burned for energy. It's not actually stored in the body as fat.
That's huge. That's very important information, Rani.
Exactly, and it's very complicated. I don't mean to oversimplify it. Lots of different fatty acids behave in very different ways, but whole foods that contain good fats really are utilized by the body in a very different way than I think we felt they did.
Yeah.
Particularly women.
It was automatically, if there was fat in the food, it was fat on the body. That
Absolutely.
was all. Right. One of the biggest, surprises, I guess, from your article is one I received myself, the same one very recently, working with a nutritionist. Mm-hmm. As, dealing with my schedule, my life, and working out a plan, that suited my lifestyle. Mm-hmm. When we got to dairy. Mm-hmm. And she said to me, some milk and this and that. I said, oh, yeah, I drink my skim milk all the time, and I eat no-fat yogurt, not a problem. Mm-hmm. And she looks at me and she goes, well, mm-hmm. I prefer that you use whole milk if you can. I said, I can't take the taste. She goes, okay, at least 1%, 2%. The reason? Because the lower the fat, the higher the sugar content.
Well, absolutely. So when this low-fat movement started really gaining momentum in the early 80s, there was a challenge that was faced by food scientists because fat makes food products very tasty and appealing, and when you take the fat out of something like a yogurt, say, it's not as appealing. It can be chalky, it can be tasteless. So they had to come up with ways to make it more appealing to the palate. And in many cases, what they did was they added sugar, high fructose corn syrup, or artificial sweeteners. And I think that's one of the reasons why whole milk is more appealing to us. It's tastier. And personally, I can totally sympathize with that. When I started researching, I was thinking every time I went to order a latte, I would automatically say the word skinny before latte. Every time I was shopping for yogurt in the grocery aisle, I would automatically bypass the 0%. No, go straight for the 0%, and bypass the full-fat version, thinking I was doing something really good for myself. And it turns out that may not be the case.
Rani Sheen is who we're talking to, health editor at Fashion Magazine. Is fat really the devil it's been made out to be? And apparently not. There are fats we need.
Well,
Embrace the fat. Have some fat with your fat.
But what's also fascinating, Rani, is your look at saturated fats.
Mm-hmm. Well, that was really the new...
Wait a minute. What are saturated fats?
So they're a type of fatty acid. Fat is a very complex macronutrient that can be broken down into different types. So saturated fat is one category. And within those, a lot of the newer research is pointing out that there are different types of saturated fats. And it's a bit sciencey. It's categorized by molecule length. So there are short-chain saturated fats, medium-chain saturated fats. And both of those are showing to be absorbed well by the body, burned for energy, and rarely stored, usually not stored in the body as fat. And then long-chain saturated fats, those are found in red meats. They're also found in hydrogenated oils. And those fats they're still thought to be more harmful to the body or less beneficial than the other kinds. So it's better to focus on those short and medium chain saturated fats. And I can lay out what some of the foods that include those are coconut oil and butter includes a lot of short chain saturated fat.
You see, I've always thought as well when it comes to fats that the tropical fats were bad for you, the palm oils and this and that. And now I've been hearing coconut oil all over the place.
Coconut oil is huge right now. I think one of the major things to remember when using coconut oil is you need to use raw coconut oil, or sometimes it's called virgin coconut oil. Hydrogenated coconut oil is as bad as any hydrogenated oil. You've heard of trans fats.
Right.
Those are very high in hydrogenated oils.
So, what's the difference in the two? Because the coconut oil we've been using is... It looks like butter. I mean, it's solid.
If you look at it's about reading the labels.
Yeah.
So if you look at the labels and it says virgin coconut oil, that's the one to go for.
Or raw coconut oil.
Yes, exactly. And so raw coconut oil contains both short and medium chain fatty acids, saturated fatty acids, both of which are helpful to the body.
It's fast. It's like, you wake up one day and the whole world changes again. But
I know. Yeah,
it's interesting.
It can be confusing. There's so much information out there, and the research seems to change all the time. I think nutrition wisdom changes with over the years, and you just have to, as my job as health editor, is to sort of try and keep track of that and see what the prevailing wisdom is at the time.
And it's also interesting, I think back to the 90s where everything was fat-free. Mm-hmm. And when you start eating that way, how you start to have problems, whether it be digestion, whether it be,
Well, there was even...
You mentioned brittle nails, Rani. I so totally had that.
Absolutely. Your cell membrane structure is made up of fat. And if that fat isn't the right type of fat, or you have no fat at all, then you definitely see that in long-term health issues like dry skin, hair and nails, as well as it has been linked to heart health issues and weight issues caused
and
by
diabetes.
Inflammation. It's being linked now to all sorts of health problems.
But what do we do when it comes to heart health? Because this, what we've been told in the past, these are things that are not good for cholesterol. Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think this is still a very contentious area, and a lot of more research is still going to be coming out about how fat relates to heart disease and to cholesterol. What I was seeing in my research is that some of the new literature challenges the idea that fat is directly linked to heart disease, but it's very complex, and I wouldn't want to tell anybody to not follow the doctor's recommendations on that at this time.
And exercise. Get out there and move.
Absolutely. Exercise can never be a bad thing.
Oh, it's all fascinating because we were finding out that certain fats were okay, but now this even expands it, I think, even more, where we go back to a much more balanced way of eating. Because
why can't they? This drives me crazy, Rani. Maybe you'll support the idea. Why can't they just, instead of saturated, unsaturated, polysaturated, blah blah, good fat, bad fat, put it on the label? Thank you very much.
I mean, that would be so helpful to all of us, wouldn't it? But I think it's just not that simple. That one fat is just good for us and another is bad for us. I think the message that I took away from reading all of this research is that if you think about fats that occur naturally in real food, those fats you can consume knowing that they're not going to be that bad for you, in moderation, of course. It's the fats that have been isolated when we isolate everything into their tiny nutrients and which one is, put them into categories and add them into processed foods. To me, that's the kind of fat that we should be watching out for.
All right, we'll leave it right there and direct people to Fashion Magazine. Rani Sheen.
That's right. If anyone would like to read the article online, it's at fashionmagazine.com/fatchance.
In fact, more than a fat chance, we're going to link to it on our blog, too.
Oh, fantastic.
And it is in the February issue.
That's right.
Rani, thanks.
Thank you so much.
Thanks you.
Bye-bye.
Rani Sheen, the health editor of Fashion Magazine.